Welcome to Money Making Conversation. I'm your host, Rashawn McDonald. I recognize that we all have different definitions of success. For some, it's a sizable paycheck. Mine is helping people wake up and inspiring them to accomplish their goals and live their very best life. These are my passions, and that's what I'm going to do for you. I want you to stop tripping over small challenges and prepare to rise above the bigger obstacles that life will and is presenting to you. The Money Making Conversation interviews provide relatable information to the listener about career and financial planning, entrepreneurship, motivation, leadership, overcoming the odds, and how to live a balanced life. My next guest is a professional fisherman, and he is the host right there. Professional. See right there. A bunch of amateurs. All you amateurs, get close to them. Close. I'm talking to a professional now. And he is the host of A Fishing Story with Ronnie Green. A Fishing Story is a series filled with his philosophy to celebrate the small things in life. He shares his passion for fishing and has a gift for finding the stories that aren't often told with his guests each week. The show is available now on CBS Sports Network, Amazon Prime Video, World Fishing Network, and Discovery Go. Please welcome to Money Making Conversation, the man who taught me how to fish again, Ronnie Green.
How you doing, Rashawn? I'm so delighted to be on the show, man. It is awesome to be here.
Well, it's really good. The whole concept of fishing. I come from the inner city, and it's Houston, Texas, Fifth Ward, and my dad used to take me cane fishing. Cane, that's what cane pole, and had a little cork,
yes,
and
sir.
Drop that bad boy in there, and you move it a little bit, and once that cork sunk, you had a fish, and you pulled it real fast, and you threw that bad boy on the bank. That's a cane pole fishing right there. That's big time.
Yes, sir.
Lord, I did the perch, I did the small bass, the largemouth bass, and them horrible catfish. Boy, man.
And you don't know what you don't know until you actually started fishing it with other people. And that's the premise behind our show. That's where I learned my prowess in fishing from my great grandmother. What's interesting about it, Rashawn, is she was a fisherwoman that was at a whole different level.
Right.
Now, I fished with my dad initially, and he just wanted to spend time with his boys. And he really wasn't an incredible fisherman, didn't have the passion,
right.
But she had the passion. But what was interesting is I learned so much about her life and our family history just by spending quality time with her, which nobody wanted to do because they thought fishing was boring. So I'd come back with all these history anecdotes all the time, saying, hey, did you know this about Grandpa so-and-so and Paw and da-da-da-da? And they were like, where you learn all that? Fishing with Granny. And that's what we call her. And so hence a fishing story was born with my great-grandmother, and she's smiling right now.
That's really interesting because, when I was out there, because you came by my house in Atlanta, and we sat down, we met, and I have a small little pond lake out in my backyard. It's fully stocked. And you asked me, he said, "How's the fishing?" I said, "Got a lot of great fish out there." But I had never went out there myself because I'm a cane pole guy. I got the equipment. You know that. I got the equipment right. I look like I know what I'm doing. And you said, "Well, let's go on out there and see what you can do."
And that's half the battle,
Let's go out there and see what you can do, Rashawn, with the fishing, with the reel and rod. You got these cane pole stories. And when I went out there, man, the relaxation part of it was amazing. Because I just go down there and just sit on my rock and watch the waters, the minnows and the frogs and the little bugs hopping around on the water, the little ripple. That calms me. That's why I have that property. It just calms me. But the fact that I was just casting out there, it really took me to a different level of serenity, I like to believe, in my mind emotionally. Talk about that whole experience and why it is so calming to fish.
Well, the thing is most people have never been able to quantify. A lot of physicians and psychologists and therapists try to understand that there's something special about it. As a matter of fact, the Veterans Administration has gone to a level to where they're recognizing it is helpful for veterans with PTSD.
Right.
And one of the things that I explain to people is, and I don't try to get too deep, but I said, if you think about it, what is our body made up of? A lot of water.
Right.
So I feel like every time that I'm around water, whether it's salt water or fresh water, there's a kindredship. to where I came from or what I relate to. I feel like that there is no data officially, and that's what they're doing is they're doing their extended study about it and actually trying to establish a documented reason. But I feel like based on my life's experience, what I call shoe leather research, which means my feet on the street or my feet in the boat, that is the best data in the world, because I feel like that our body is made up of a lot of water. And so when you go and you're actually around salt water or fresh water, there's some type of kindredship. Right. You're close to it.
Right.
So it's something about it. We still will never probably understand it, even though they do the studies. And you know what, Rashawn, sometimes some things just shouldn't be understood. We just know it has a positive effect on us. And so that's kind of the way I feel about it, because every time I'm having a long week, sometimes my wife will even encourage me, I think you need to go fishing.
Right. Well, you know, and it's crazy because of the fact, and I say crazy in a good way, because of the fact that, you know, I'm looking at this water and I know it relaxes me. And then I had another gift of being able to equally relax me and just keep my mind active, you know, because that's that's what I learned from you when you came out there, and you gave me another turn to the process, you know, because, you know, our brains, man, it just flows, you know, from bills to controversy to issues to parenting to mobiles and jobs, and so out there it pushed all that to the back, and all I was worried about was that how far I can get that hook out in that water, you know, and getting it back fast enough. And so I didn't think about nothing else but that little 1-2 punch that I was dealing with. And boy, when I snagged one, you saw how big I was smiling. When I snagged one, and then returned it to the water, you know, and released it back out. That was like a really 360 for me as far as the whole process of what you're talking about when it comes to, you know, the meditation part, the being in an environment that will calm you. And that's what I think that they're saying. It pushes back all that noise that can be in your brain. And that's important. That's important.
And you know what, Rashawn, that gets to the show as well, because when we do the show on the water, one of the things that people know that when they watch the show, there's something that has never been done on this particular type of show, especially in the fishing industry, is there is a release of emotions that occurs. Yes. What I mean by that is we have people that get extremely emotional, and there's even a reputation. People give me a hard time about it. I'm not going to cry on your show, but it's not something that we script. There's nothing you can script about it, but something about it, you're so relaxed and relieved, and all the stresses go away, and then it also purges your soul, so to speak. And at the end of the day, there's that release of emotion that is natural and organic. Hence, you have a organic show where people are telling their life stories on the water, and that whole connection thing again.
Right. Okay. I'm talking to Ronnie Green. He's just the host of A Fishing Story with Ronnie Green. I got to ask a question that everybody's probably asking. How does the black man get in the professional fishing game? How does a black man get in the professional fishing game? Because we know it's a white industry. How did you do that? And there's some more anglers as well who are African Americans. But let's talk about you.
Yeah, so how I started, I'm a former officer in the United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi, and then also after the Marine Corps, I was also a corporate citizen, what I would consider. You know, I was a sales manager in the medical device business, pacemakers, defibrillators, the whole 9 yards. So the clinical aspect, you know, and then way prior to that, I was also a former All-American sprinter. So those life experiences helped me and shaped me. But all along, with all those things I've accomplished in life, my great-grandmother helped me to learn that always keep this in the back of your pocket. This is your therapy. Right. So I would go through life and always fish and do things. And then after my mother passed away in 2007, my kids were old enough to graduate from high school and did their thing and on to college. I said, now it's my time. And it's my focus about me. At the end of the day, I started fishing some tournaments, and it was also therapeutic for me.
How do you get in a tournament now? Would you just, anybody can just fish in a tournament, or you just pay a fee? How does that work?
Yes, and that's a great question. And what happens is you pay a fee, right? And you can, so it might be an entry fee of a few $1,000s.
Okay.
And it might be 180 anglers. What you want to do is hone your skills up before you get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I actually fished in a tournament. I signed up as a coangler first. And what that is the person that's on the boat and you're with a stranger, but you're not running the boat. You're in someone else's boat and you're a coangler competing against other coanglers. So I was very successful in that. Then I graduated to the front of the boat.
Okay, well, let's slow down. Let's slow down, right? Now, okay, to be good at being a co-angler, what did you have to do as far as catching? Or is it size? Is the amount? Is it a time window? What is that?
That's a great question as well. So what it is with at 8-hour period, you have to catch the largest 5 fish you can catch.
Right.
And that's the whole objective. And as a co-angler, you also have to think and be strategic as well, because the person in the front of the boat has first opportunity of a fish that's probably more aggressive to catch that fish. So you're fishing behind them, you're getting the leftover. So you got to have a counter bait that's going to be just as good, but may not be the exact same bait as the primary angler you're fishing with.
Oh, okay.
And so I was very successful at that. And again, when you go to the stage, you are competing against other co-anglers, and so your weight counts against all the other co-anglers. And I've won a lot of money and a lot of tournaments and doing that, and then moved on to the front of the boat. And that is so exciting. And there is only, just so you know, in the fishing industry, I can count on my hand 4 African-American people that are fishing professionally for a living. That's Brian Latimer, Mark Daniels, Is Monroe, and then myself, who's also on TV. So it is a very difficult sport because the business model was similar to NASCAR.
Right.
And so what that means is you have to have sponsors.
Right.
And
on your show, I saw Mercury, I saw Ranger Boats, and I saw Bass Pro Shops.
Absolutely. So Bass Pro Shops is one of the most influential and the most powerful in the industry. And I am fortunate enough to be with Bass Pro Shops. Mercury Marine, incredible engine company here in America that does a great job. And what I love about Mercury is they are one of the most diverse companies that I've ever seen. They are way far ahead than what I've seen most companies. And I love that about Mercury. And then Gary Yamamoto Custom Baits, they are incredible as well. So they've all been supportive, and, you know, they've been there with me from day one, and I can appreciate it. And we wouldn't be able to bring a lot of good content without them.
And so how does one get a sponsor? I'm just going through some steps here, just to let everybody know, because you're in such a unique field. You're an African American. We all know, like, NASCAR is a white dominated sport, and so that means I don't know if every environment you go in is a comfortable environment. But just talk about your experience overall in the fishing industry, in the beginning and now.
So in the beginning, of course, just like anything, when people think you have a TV show, people are just going to pass out sponsorships because you're on TV. Mm-hmm. And wrong answer. That is not the way it works. So what they do is they'll watch you, and quite honestly, it's a high risk. And some of them are still trying to learn to deal with African American, because a lot of them have never been exposed. I won't say a lot, but quite a few have not been exposed to African American culture. So you have what I call a cognitive dissonance of what you see. You see this polished African-American person who's patriotic as well, and you're in the Marine Corps, but yet and still your belief system based on what you've seen and heard is not recognizing what you see, and there is the cognitive dissonance. Right. So you're fighting against yourself. So ultimately, that leads to sometimes not getting a sponsorship. But the folks that are always progressive in their thinking, in the sense of not necessarily affiliated with a political party, but more so just understanding that we all want to sell more product, they will find a way to bring on the best in the business that do what they do. Wow. And hence, that's how I've been able to get an opportunity.
Now, Ronnie, I got Amazon Prime, so I can see you on Amazon Prime all seasons.
Yes, you can.
Okay, cool.
That was the first 3 seasons, and we've had some more content coming that direction. I probably had 3 additional episodes or seasons coming within the next, I think, 2 months. So what is
the episode? Is it half hour, or you have one guest? You have regular people, celebrities, politicians, athletes? Who's on the boat with you when you're fishing?
That's a great question, Rashawn. And we see whoever has an incredible story. Typically, you'll see entertainers, athletes, everyday people alike, veterans, firefighters, politicians, and just people like you and I that, want to do some fishing, but they have a great story. We had recently Dr. Hammond. She's a psychologist. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the interesting thing. She's never fished before in her life. We had one of the best fishing days I've had on the show with her, and we were fishing with artificial. Why is that important? Because artificial is a very difficult bait to fish with if you've never done artificial. Live bait is easy because that's filet mignon to the fish.
Right.
They can eat that easily.
Mm-hmm.
But to artificial has to mimic something live, and you got to make it come alive. She was a fast learner, and we caught literally close to 100 fish, trout, on a given day. That's never happened before. It was just fast and furious. But my point is simply this. Anyone that has a story, we will find the accommodations for fishing style that actually caters to the level of fishing ability that they have.
Well, guess what? I think mine was at her level when you met me in my backyard. took me down to my little lake and said, "Hey, Rashawn, you got the equipment, but you have no skill." So, but I think that helps when somebody and just. Women in general are more curious and more patient. Where men, we tend to want to just burst down the door and I got this. So
yes.
There's noisy, being noisy. Fish hear you. No, hey man, if you don't shut up, okay, fish can hear vibrations in the water. Oh, what? Really? Yes. Fishing is a quiet sport. Okay, it's not a football game, not basketball. Just want to let you know, you don't holler at the baseball fish, you don't do that fishing, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Sir.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay? Why we not getting no fish? Well, you
funny.
keep screaming like that, you won't get any. Just let you know that. Ronnie know I'm telling the truth. Boy.
You are telling it like it is, and I can appreciate that because my dad used to be that way with us. He's like, boy, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm
like, hey,
Fish got ears, Dad. Hey. Don't go there, young man. Don't go there. You be out there with the fish. Be out there with the fish.
That's
okay.
Right.
That's right. Hope you can swim. Knock you off this boat. You say one more time. So let's talk about this, Ronnie. The essentials of going out there and fishing. Do you have to have your off mosquito repellent when you go out there? What do you got to have?
Here's what's so interesting is you have to have some. Probably not as much mosquito repellent as you think. And
okay.
I'm in Florida. This is mosquito mecca, and I think they all on steroids. This is big mosquitoes.
Yes.
But what I do is I fish in the daytime.
Okay.
What my actual essential is sunscreen. Yes, I have melanin in my skin. I'm an African American.
Right.
But sunscreen is so important because you can get I've seen some African American get skin cancer. And I'm like, I don't think that's supposed to happen.
Right.
But what happens is it's all about education. So definitely have the sunscreen. That's the first thing I do is make sure the sunscreen's on so I'm greased up a little bit. Then I also make sure that you have the appropriate gear.
Right.
If you've never fished before, probably want to have a spinning rod. And what a spinning rod is, it has a bail on it and it has the elongated eyes that come off the rod. And it's a lot easier to learn with a spinning rod than a bait caster. Bait caster gets you in trouble if you've never thrown it before. But a spinning rod is so important. And a lot of people still fish with it, even though they may know how to throw a bait caster. So it's a good place to start. And then I like to have some good fishing line. I like to throw fluorocarbon versus monofilament.
Right.
Now, what's the difference? Monofilament is a little bit more stretchy, and it can be seen, but the fluorocarbon, it reflects the light, so you can't see it underwater. Why is that important? Because the fish can't see it as well. In addition, it does not have stretch. So if it doesn't have stretch, once you get a bite, when you pull on that thing, you're pulling the fish. Mono has a little stretch. So those are all little important things, and people have little idiosyncrasies that they use with fishing, and then some people even have superstitions. Some people don't believe in having bananas in a boat. I'm sorry, I'm going to eat whenever I'm hungry, and I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, there's all sorts of superstitions with fishing, but then there's also a lot of information about fishing that people didn't know, that I didn't learn. I didn't learn about George Snyder until probably about 7 or 8 years ago. He was the person that created the first reel made in America in 1820. He was African American, and he created the first reel. Nobody knew that. People ask questions like, man, I'm so glad to see African Americans fishing. Stop right there. African Americans were some of the first to fish.
Right.
Always.
But isn't that the problem we're having right now with that our history? They always talk about canceling culture. The black culture has always been canceled. And,
wow, that is a good point.
Because of the fact that, because we're about to transition into your 2-part series, the difficult discussion, because of the fact that when I look at our president, quick to sign executive orders to protect the Confederate statues, okay, and then turn around and say that Black Lives Matter is a hate group, and not understanding the accomplishments we had. That's why when Drew Brees said his fathers fought in the war and his grandfathers fought in the war, because in his mind, he's never been educated that black people fought in anything.
Absolutely.
Because the history is not there. The history doesn't write us in like that. And they brought us over, they freed us. Okay, then it moved up to the I Have a Dream speech. Then it moved up to the civil rights. And after that, brother, we didn't do anything else but stay on welfare, sell crack, and raise the crime rate according to the population that wants to push that narrative. And so when I hear you talk about 1820 and a black man created the first really fishing rod, I'm not stunned. Because as you all know, black people, we're creative because basically we out there doing the work anyway. So if you're doing the work, you're going to figure out how to do it faster and easier and more convenient. That's why we created the cotton gin. Okay. Now, but you put together this 2-part series called the Difficult Discussion. I saw both episodes. It was 3 black men, 2 white men. Tell us how you selected the 5, and tell us how the whole scenario started, because it really was cool the way you did it, because you still kept the fishing aspect into the episode, wrapped around this conversation, which I really enjoyed. I didn't know what to expect, but when I got there, I went, oh, this is I wouldn't say the word nice, but it was enjoyable, because I wasn't taken out of the whole reason why I watch the show, but I was able to hear honest conversation from men having the difficult conversations. Because even though the conversation flowed the way it flowed, some statements were held back a little bit, but a lot of honesty was at least transmitted. Talk to us about it right quick, Ronnie.
Yeah, so what we did is we took some folks that have been on my show already. Everyone that was in the panel, because I fished with them before, we had them on the show, and I've called several other folks, and not everybody was comfortable. So I was okay with that. So I took the folks that were available, and we had some folks even fly in just to be a part of it, because when a lot has gone on in our country over the last few months, there's been a lot of conversation, and talking to friends and family, and then talking to even the guys that were on the show before we even got on the show. And there was a lot of different dialogue and conversation about it. I said, well, why don't we bring it to a place, I said, where it's my lane. And what I mean by my lane, I'm not going to try to walk into a surgeon's office and try to become a surgeon just because I want to. I'm not going to try to be a politician because I feel like I'm a politician, but I want to talk about honest issues from the platform that I have. And so we brought everybody on, and we talked about the difficult discussions with the show. It started off being just one show, but after all the content was done and CBS Sports agreed, we need to have 2 shows, 2 episodes. And we got into some deep areas, Colin Kaepernick. We got into, all of the folks being killed, in the streets by police. And then we talked about a little bit of everything. But at the end of the day, we actually established the ground rules. And the ground rules that I established, just based on my interaction with folks, and me and my wife sit down and talk about it, is belief system, because that's where everything starts. And so we defined what a belief system is, and then we actually built on belief system by moving to narrative, because a narrative is an account of what you see sometimes infused with a belief system, which we all agree the belief system comes from our parents,
right,
or parent figures.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, we talked about all those issues and always being able to refer back to belief system and narrative. So just because you see a certain thing doesn't mean that it's exactly what you see, but it's easy to ride the train when you feel like your emotions are stirred. Case in point is Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
Not talking about the important factor in it is he sat down on his bottom, at first, and then talked to and consulted Sergeant Boyer, who was a long snapper on the San Francisco 49ers. And he said, I agree with what you're doing, but it might be a little bit more respectful. You can do whatever you want, but I would recommend you take a knee. He said, well, you know what? I'm going to take a knee, and because he wanted to take a peaceful stance. But the message, the narrative was missed because he was doing it to actually bring attention to what we are dealing with right now, which is African-American people are being assassinated in the streets by people of authority that are paid to protect and serve.
Yes.
So that was the issue. But the narrative was flipped. And I talked about historically, and we couldn't put everything into the episode. We had to depend on the editor, and I had to be a part of that process as well. But we had to put what we could get in. At the end of the day, historically, if you look at Muhammad Ali, if you look at the folks in 1968 Olympics, if you look at any entertainer,
John Carlos and Tommy Smith. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a stand about something civil that is unrest that has to do with us. The narrative can be flipped because it's so easy to flip a narrative because you want to stop the momentum. The momentum is what you want to stop. Mm-hmm. So what you do is find a way to give a counter narrative. And I talked about even Martin Luther King. There was always a counter narrative with him, but we celebrate him as a hero, American hero. We have a holiday dedicated to it, but there was so many more in our country that look like me. But again, narratives. So it's interesting. No matter what we do, in some instances, sometimes the narrative can be flipped. And it's because there is always a counter current trying to say, hey, we don't want to give that credit because we don't want to give the ability for someone to actually change their belief system. Because if you change the belief system, then people believe that there's other people that did some other things in this country.
There you go.
We don't want that.
That's the key right there. Giving credit, giving recognition, acknowledging that we did not share properly the history of African Americans in our school books. That's what we're talking about. When you walk around here and you're saluting statues that of the Confederacy, and you hear the word traitor thrown out there a lot. They were traitors. They fought against they tried to divide this country. But we're saluting them as heroes. But we don't salute our accomplishments throughout the community. And so what we try to do. And so when I was looking at the two-parter, I thought it was informative. It was humorous. What's the little chubby guy name? He was funny, man. He was funny. He knew how to
James Watson.
He knew how to spin a good conversation away. And I love what the conversation about. You can disagree with African American, but you're not a racist. And that's what the conversation we're trying to get to is they talk to me. Don't assume. Just talk to me.
Just talk.
And that's that was my big takeaway from watching your show. Was like, just talk to me. And I get you there, but if you just assume something about me, then that's where we all turn the wrong corner. When you lock your doors when I walk by, when you nervously walk past me, or when a white person will never understand. I gotta say it like this: that it is different when a cop stops a white person and an emotion that they feel when a cop stops a black person. Way different emotions, brother. Way different, brother.
Yes, sir. Because I said this, and I talked about it in the very first episode.
That was your first story
about my experience.
Yeah. You're the white passenger, and they took you out. You know what I'm saying? And brought you to the rack, and the white passenger was like, "What's going on?" Hey. And that's really where we at in our lives right now, man. And to see that, first of all, for you to do that for your show. because you're going to reach a totally different audience. The audience are fishermen, we're not saying they pretty conservative. They're kind of rural-minded individuals who needed to see that conversation. Absolutely. Also from some people who are courageous enough that were white to sit down and have this conversation, because that's how we're gonna win, man. That's how the flag comes down at NASCAR, man. That's how we're gonna remove some of these statues. We want to remove them all, these Confederate statues, and walk around and realize that I have value. And that's all you told me in your show, man. Ronnie, I want to thank you for doing that, man. For you realizing what motivates you to do that about your show, to do that, bring that to your show.
Well, I think a lot of my motivation is, again, I always believe that with everything going on, make no mistakes about it, I have emotion like anybody else, and I get upset, but I always feel like you got to stay in your lane. So use your platform. So my wife is a physician, and what she does is at work as a physician, and she can do what she does at her platform. But I felt like I was not granted and gifted this platform just to sit on it and feel comfortable. That's a problem. You cannot always feel comfortable. You got to get uncomfortable to make change. Mm-hmm. And that's the history of America, is you got to do something that makes you uncomfortable, and that causes growth, not just for you, but everybody around you. So I felt like I'm going to do it as fair and as possible by having a dialogue. And again, people are going to see it because a lot of folks have never been exposed to it. So at the end of the day, now they see a model. Now we got a best practice. So when people see a model, they may be able to replicate that behavior in a different environment.
Cool. Ronnie, I want to thank you for, I can see this episode on Amazon Prime right now, Amazon Prime Video.
It will be coming. And as a matter of fact, we have, and you'll hear it first on your show, is we're going to have an actual airing on YouTube as well, a special airing of both episodes, because we really want people to see this, because many people don't have cable nowadays.
Absolutely. I want to thank you, my friend Ronnie Green. Got to come back to Atlanta, man, and take me back out there and fish some more, or just come out and eat dinner, man. You came by my house and fixed your breakfast, remember? I had laid it out for you. Yes, sir. And I'm still slapping people to this day because it was so good. I appreciate you, Ronnie.
I didn't know you do it like that.
I can do it like that, my friend. And thank you for coming on Money Making Conversations, Ronnie Green.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
I appreciate it.
You want to hear more episodes of Money Making Conversations? Please go to moneymakingconversation.com. I'm Rushion McDonald.